Daniel Ek, the man who made Spotify. You've got to admit it, streaming music is a big part of our daily lives now. We all put on our AirPods and tell Alexa or Siri to play some catchy songs on Spotify without even considering where that music is coming from. With Spotify, you can access millions of songs, all accessible with just a simple tap. But how did this all come to be? How did one person create one of the biggest music platforms ever? That's what we'll be talking about today. Hello again, and thanks for coming back to our channel. This time we'll learn about Daniel Ek, the founder of Spotify, and how he came to be. If this thing interests you, you should click the subscribe and notification buttons so you can watch more videos like this and never miss any of our updates. Now let's get listening. Daniel Ek was born in February 1983 in the Rågsved neighborhood of Stockholm, Sweden. Ever since then, Ek has had a passion for technology since childhood. It was no surprise, since his stepfather, who worked in information technology, was the one who raised him. As a kid, Daniel Ek was already programming basic code while he listened to music. Due to his interest in new technologies, Daniel started his own business at a young age. At age 14, Ek made web pages in his high school computer room. First, he sold them for cheap. Then, using his leadership, Ek recruited his buddies to join him, and with his tiny firm, Daniel was earning $15,000 a month, which Ek essentially put into video games. Later, he invested in servers where he hosted the web pages. This way, Ek increased his profits even more. As the years rolled by and Ek turned 16, he grew unsettled about the whole thing, so instead he tried to get hired at Google because he was obsessed with the platform's speed. However, they rejected him because Ek didn't have a diploma. Thus, he tried to construct his search engine, but was unsuccessful. Then came to university, which Daniel ended up finding dull, so he dropped out in his first year. But after all, he didn't need it much because he devised a system that would eventually have made him enough money to pay twice his tuition soon after. At last, a Stockholm-based promotion network called Trade Doubler requested that he fabricate a program to enlighten them regarding the locales they contracted with. And Ek constructed something so powerful that the organization paid him about $1 million for the privileges to it in 2006. He made another $1 million selling related licenses. And so, at the tender age of 23, Ek immediately became a member of the country's elite, with a Ferrari of his own and a plush apartment in Stockholm. But for some reason, he wasn't happy. He was all by himself, surrounded by individuals who cared solely about his wealth. Ek concluded that money could not buy him total happiness. Things went downhill quickly. Ek, a self-made millionaire at age 23, retreated to the woods 20 miles south of Stockholm to escape the cold and his depression. He sold the Ferrari and retreated to a cottage near his parents, where he spent his days strumming a guitar and contemplating life. After failing at starting 3 technology companies, Ek found solace in his other great passion, music. Even as a young child, he had a natural talent for music. His mother's parents both had musical backgrounds, his grandmother sang opera, and his grandfather played jazz. He also picked up the guitar at the tender age of 5 thanks to a gift from his mom. Now the harmonica, drums, and piano are among a few of the many instruments that Ek can play. During this time, Ek became close with Martin Lorentzen, the chairman of Trade Doubler and a 42-year-old fitness fanatic. The Alta Vista native and serial entrepreneur took Trade Doubler public in 2005, reaping a $70 million windfall. But since he was no longer necessary to running the show, he too felt bored and aimless. Nevertheless, Ek became close with Lorentzen and bonded over their inability to experience happiness and their love for gangster films. In the end, Martin offered his services and helped secure funding for the venture's launch. In addition, Daniel shared his 2 great loves with the world, music and technology. Later in 2006, Ek gave Lorentzen a week to leave Trade Doubler, despite his skepticism that he would. Lorentzen would have to formally resign as chairman and transfer 1 million euros of seed money into Ek's account before they would commit to a partnership. The following Monday, Trade Doubler issued a news release informing the public of Martin Lorentzen's departure. Later that day, he instructed Ek to investigate his financial situation. The funds were available. What kind of company the two men would launch was still up in the air until Ek had formulated a particular idea. Back then, the idea was utterly outlandish. Millions of songs for free, with reasonable costs for the premium plan, the ability to share playlists with friends, access at all hours of the day, and more. Unquestionably an example of original thought. As Eck no longer cared about money, Lorentzen could fund the venture. Both were in search of a source of happiness that not only came from money. The pair decided to come up with a name before planning on anything else. So they started yelling out potential names for a music website from separate rooms in Eck's house, wondering what would happen. Spotify! Eck misheard Lorentzen and decided to look up the name on the internet. 0 results. Bingo! Eck and Lorentzen started the advertising-based model by registering the domain name. After that, they sent a few hired engineers to Barcelona to enjoy some weird German electropop and nightlife. They were all proven effective. Then they built a prototype in Stockholm using iTunes user interface and Eck's sleek black Samsung flat-screen TV. Unlike other music streaming services, this one was founded by Eck using legal label relationships. Unlike previous buyers, we wanted to establish that we were not in it to leverage their material to flip the company, as Eck puts it. With the help of his industry lawyer, Fred Davis, Eck tried to secure global music rights, but was unsuccessful. He sought European licenses, which took 2 years instead of 3 months. Eck and his colleagues badgered label executives, promising their free ad-based strategy would boost sales. They would reply with, "Yeah, this sounds really interesting," or "Send me over some stats." But Eck knew what they meant. Nobody bit. Eventually, Eck uploaded pirated music to Spotify and provided industry executives with demos. That's what got the executives' attention. Spotify spent money, while Eck negotiated with music companies. Eck and Lorentzen pledged million-dollar advances to labels for music catalog access on top of salary and costs. VCs avoided them. They added approximately $5 million to Lorentzen's $2 million to keep Spotify afloat. Soon enough, Spotify launched in Sweden, France, the UK, and Spain in October 2008. US transactions took roughly 3 years, but eventually they released Spotify there too, and the rest is history. The business quickly grew, largely thanks to the thousands of Swedish residents who finally found the music streaming service that met all their needs. A Spotify user can stream music without having to store it locally. Instead, a user can connect a mobile phone or a computer to the net to access the music of one's choice. Daniel works as Spotify's CEO, overseeing all business and distribution functions. Spotify now boasts over 15 million tracks and over 10 million monthly active users. But of course, you can get all this for nothing if you don't mind hearing commercials in the middle of the songs. Later on, in October 2016, Martin Lorentzen announced his retirement as chairman of Spotify, nearly 10 years after the company's founding. Soon after, Eck replaced Lorentzen as Spotify's chairman. Notwithstanding the news, Lorentzen continued serving as vice chairman on the Spotify board of directors. Spotify has evolved and gone through some highs and lows, but the service's popularity has remained steady. It's as quick and straightforward as iTunes, as adaptable as Napster, and as inexpensive as an online radio service. It's accessible to everybody and discourages piracy, setting it apart from competing services. Spotify is adding more features today, the most recent being the AI DJ available to premium users. Regardless, Spotify has yet to disprove itself as one of the most influential music platforms for listeners and artists. The reasonable men adapt themselves to the world, while the unreasonable persists in trying to adapt the world to themselves. Therefore, all progress depends on the unreasonable men. These were the words of George Bernard Shaw that Eck took to heart and applied from his journey as a music and tech enthusiast to the creator of a multi-billionaire platform. It shows that you can go a long way with the right heart. Thanks for watching this far, and remember to give this video a thumbs up. Leave a comment and tell us your favorite part about this video, and feel free to suggest what videos we should make next. We'll see you guys soon!